A woman and a child are targeted in a carjacking in a busy Mississauga shopping area.
10,000 LCBO workers could walk off the job if a deal isn't reached by midnight tonight, closing all stores across the province.
And an Oscar-winning Hollywood director is weighing in on the fight to save Toronto landmark Revue Cinema. We're going to tell you who coming up.
And 2 councillors are calling on the city to do something about Toronto's rat problem.
This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lindsay Biscaya. Welcome to Live at 5. Many LCBO stores will be staying open later than usual tonight ahead of the midnight strike deadline.
Yeah, contract talks, they continue between the Crown Corporation as well as OPSU. And for the latest, we're joined live by CP24's CJ.
Lindsay, Bakari, no update just yet on how talks are going, but we are just hours away from potentially the first strike in LCBO history. Now, if we don't get an agreement by midnight, 10,000 LCBO workers would walk off the job, and all locations across the province would close for 2 weeks. OPSU, which is the union representing LCBO workers, says the Ford government's plan to allow convenience and grocery stores to sell some alcohol is at the heart of the negotiations. Its workers feared this would result in job cuts and store closures. They are also seeking wage increases and more full-time jobs, saying part-time roles take up about 70% of their workforce right now. So what will happen if a strike occurs at midnight? All retail locations, we're talking around 680 locations across the province, will close for 14 days. Then after the 2 weeks, on July 19th, around 30 locations will reopen for in-store shopping. However, these locations will only be open on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays for limited hours. LCBO says you can also order online or through its mobile app, and delivery would be free to your home. We reached out to LCBO for more explanation on how this would work, but did not hear back yet. And of course, you can always purchase alcohol at places that already sell it, such as the beer store, convenience stores, or wineries. However, if you like liquor, if you like to make cocktails, those types of things that are only available at LCBO, you'll have to stock up, and some stores will be open late tonight. Take a listen to what some folks had to say who were out shopping today.
I guess it's just a matter of planning right. Obviously, we're all used to getting alcohol when the time strikes us, but obviously now that there's going to be 2 weeks without it, obviously there's a lot of events happening, obviously parties, people like to hang out, and everyone likes a good drink, and when you don't have access to that right away, or by people like LCBO, obviously it makes it a little bit hard to get that alcohol.
Now that you say it, I probably would do that, because I went there yesterday, but I didn't really think of stocking up because it wasn't on my mind. But yeah, maybe it's an idea. I would certainly consider that today. Think about it.
And it's not just everyday people that could be affected, also restaurants who purchase large orders. We spoke with Restaurant Canada Ontario Vice President about how they could be impacted.
Most of the wine is going to come from the LCBO, and spirits will come from the LCBO. So for a typical restaurant, it can be all over the map. It's pretty commonplace where you're going to find a restaurant having about 30% of its revenue coming from alcohol. It could be maybe a third is beer, a third is wine, a third is spirits. But that can vary significantly between different restaurants. And if you have something that's more like a pub, it might be 60% of their revenue is coming from alcohol, where a lot of that will be beer. But nonetheless, this is going to have a potentially significant impact on restaurants.
And over the years, unionized LCBO workers have been able to get a deal without walking off the job. Since 2005, there have been 4 times when they voted to strike, but each time they were able to reach a deal before the midnight deadline. So for today, that obviously is the hope. But as of right now, there is no update on how negotiations are going. The last time we heard from OPSU was this morning, and they said it would be a long day of bargaining, and the two sides remain very far apart on the main issue. So your best bet right now, if you need any liquor for the next 2 weeks, is to stock up. Some locations will be open as late as 10 p.m. Back to you guys.
All right, CP24, CJ live in studio. Thanks a lot. Right now it's 5:04, feeling like 35 outside. Let's get a check on the commute with CP24's traffic specialist, Adjoa and Bois. Adj.
Yeah, Bakari, it's still quite the busy go, and we have quite a few issues. We'll start in Brampton on the northbound lanes of the 410. This is just as you make your way through Queen. Crews on scene of a collision blocking the left lane as well as that left shoulder. So this is why you're running into that slow spot from well before the 407. Then on the 401, this is the eastbound lanes of the 401. Not too sure why I'm zooming in like this, but eastbound on the 401, just as you make your way on the approach to the DVP 404 via the express. Left lane and shoulder blocked following this stall. And we were dealing with some problems on the 401 on the westbound side on the approach to the 400. This stalled vehicle now just moved over to the side. It was blocking the right lane. And keep the good news rolling. We had problems on the northbound DVP just near Winford. The stalled vehicle also now off to the shoulder on city streets, actually on the highways on the 400 outside of Camera View, southbound 400 at Highway 9. Collision in the two right lanes.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Well, some frightening moments for a woman and a child last night when they were carjacked at Heartland Town Center in Mississauga.
Right now, let's go live to CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ryan. Steve, what all can you tell us about this?
Yeah, Bakari and Lindsay, the carjacking occurred somewhere in this plaza parking lot just before 7 p.m. last night, and police allege that a woman and a child were approaching their white BMW when a black sedan pulled up. 3 suspects were inside, the driver and 2 others. The 2 others got out of the vehicle and took the woman's BMW. They're described both as being male black, wearing dark clothing and masks. Now, what distinguishes a theft of auto from a carjacking is the threat or use of violence. It's a robbery for all intents and purposes, and it's a random act as far as the police are concerned, and they believe that this person may have been targeted because of the brand of vehicle that she was driving, that being a white BMW. Now, the 2 vehicles, the sedan and the BMW, have not been located, nor have the 3 suspects yet been identified, and the police are asking for the public assistance in helping solve this case. Here's more from Peel Regional Police, who we heard from earlier today. Let's listen.
I understand that this is a disturbing event for our community, and we would just want to ensure to our community that we are working our best to determine what happened during the incident, and we are trying to figure out who were those suspects. If anyone has information who were in that area or may have a dash cam footage or he may have seen something or heard something, we encourage you to contact us, or if you wish to stay anonymous, you can call Peel Crime Stoppers.
Now, all violent crime affect the community, whether it's a targeted crime or a random crime. Random crimes have a special effect on a community, and that is that a community could fear that they may be the next victim of a random carjacking, for instance, and that could affect their quality of life. And this is why the officer was talking about how this type of crime can affect the community. And again, they are asking for the public's assistance. So if you were in this area at 7-ish p.m. last night and you saw something, you're asked to give Peel Regional Police a call. Back to the desk.
Okay, that is our crime analyst, Steve Ryan, reporting live for us. Thanks, Steve. Alcohol is believed to have been a factor in a fatal overnight crash on the Gardiner. Just after 2 this morning, police say a black Audi was speeding in the eastbound lanes past Dufferin when it rear-ended another car with 5 people inside. A 40-year-old woman died in hospital, and a 20-year-old woman suffered life-altering injuries. A toddler was also taken to sick kids with minor injuries. The driver of the Audi was spotted walking away on foot, and police believe he was picked up by a rideshare or taxi. 48-year-old Vance Kong of Whitby was later arrested, and he has now been charged with impaired and dangerous driving causing death and leaving the scene of a fatal accident.
And police have released images of a man wanted in an assault on a TTC bus. So according to police, the victim accidentally made contact with the suspect on a bus in the Birchmount and Ellesmere area. This was around 2 o'clock the afternoon of June 15th. The suspect is then accused of pulling out a knife. Well, the victim got off the bus and was chased, but was able to get back safely onto the bus. And the suspect is described as being 45 years old, about 6'1". He was last seen wearing a brown jacket, dark-colored glasses, red pants, black shoes, and was carrying a black and white backpack. And police have released images of a man wanted in a voyeurism investigation. They say that a woman was in a store changing room. This is in the North Queen and the Queensway area That's when she saw a cell phone being held under the stall. Well, the suspect then left the area. He's described as being 50 to 60 years old with a medium build, short, receding dark hair, and clean shaven. The suspect was last seen wearing blue pants with a blue and red T-shirt.
And York police are investigating a case of arson in Vaughan that saw 6 dump trucks damaged. It happened on Monday just before midnight at a yard in the area of Highway 27 and the 407. Vaughan Fire extinguished the fire and there were no injuries. But surveillance video did show one suspect in the yard who approached the vehicles, poured a flammable liquid around them, and then ignited the fire.
Right now it's 5:10, 29 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Calls for a rat strategy. Coming up, we will hear why 2 councillors say Toronto needs to come up with a plan to deal with those rats. Stay with us. A pair of city councillors are calling for a strategy to deal with rat infestations in Toronto. Alejandra Bravo and Amber Morley say they have been receiving complaints from people who are concerned about rats in their neighborhoods. They say large rodent populations have become an increasing challenge due to climate change, construction site management, and other factors. And they want council to direct city staff to come up with a rat reduction action plan that addresses environmental factors and has an integrated pest management approach.
I had been hearing and noticing this even before I came to City Council. The calls and the requests increased. It's a problem that's all over North America. And I started to talk to my council colleagues. It's a problem for them in different parts of the city. It's very disturbing to see all these images that you're showing of rats. I think most people know that this is not something that they feel comfortable with. It's threatening. There's rats have a huge impact on vehicles. They chew through infrastructure and wires.
A list by pest control company Orkin Canada in 2023 ranked Toronto at the top with the highest rodent populations.
Well, the cost of 2 new electric ferries to serve the Toronto Island, it's ballooned to $92 million. The new price tag was confirmed by city staff at a committee meeting earlier this week. The contract is set to be awarded to Damon Shipyards Galati, who will build the ferries in Romania. And the new vessels, they're set to be delivered in late 2026 and early 2027. The current ferries are between 60 and 114 years old, far beyond the average lifespan. Well, after years of going in the garbage, coffee cups can now be recycled in Toronto. A new pilot program launched this week as part of a phased province-wide plan to recycle paper and plastic line cups by 2026. For now, the pilot program, it only applies to blue bins at home, not the ones on the street, but the city's asking residents to toss them in the large blue bins anyway, just to get in the habit and reduce confusion. And cups need to be empty, rinsed, and separated from the sleeve and lid, but they can all be recycled.
Toronto's oldest cinema is getting some high-profile support as it fights to stay open. The Revue has been a Roncesvalles landmark for over 100 years. Last week, the group that operates the cinema said it was having trouble renewing its lease, citing a disagreement with the landlords over repairs and a rent increase. The tenants got an injunction to keep the doors open for now, but that's only temporary. Now, Oscar-winning Hollywood director Guillermo Del Toro is joining the call to save the Revue. He took to social media directly asking Mayor Chow to help save the Revue. He called it one of Canada's most beloved nonprofit cultural landmarks, and he asked Chow, if not you, who can help, or how can I help? Del Toro posted a link to a change.org petition, noting almost 20,000 signatures have been added already.
It's 5:15, 29 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Home sales in the GTA were down 16% in June, despite the Bank of Canada's rate cut. Coming up, we'll break down those numbers for you. Stay with us. Welcome back. The University of Waterloo is seeking $1.5 million in damages from the participants of a pro-Palestinian protest encampment on campus. The university has filed a lawsuit claiming the demonstration, which has been ongoing since May, has harmed the school's reputation and damaged its property. The university is also seeking an order to dismantle the encampment and allow police to arrest and remove people who refuse to leave. Protesters denounced the lawsuit on social media, calling it an attempt to intimidate students with the possibility of hefty fines they cannot afford.
Well, speaking of affordability, it seems that many potential home buyers in the Toronto area decided to stay on the sidelines last month despite the Bank of Canada's interest rate cut. The Toronto Regional Real Estate Board says that home sales in June, they fell more than 16% from last year. Roughly 6,200 properties changed hands that month. That's compared to more than 7,400 in June of 2023. The average selling price in the GTA, that also went down 1.6% to a little more than $1.1 million. And Trepp says that the data suggests home buyers are waiting for multiple rate cuts before getting into the market.
Obviously, you're still seeing people sort of weighing their options, and you know, I mean, even with home prices lower in comparison to what we saw, say, in 2021 and 2022, they're still fairly high from an affordability perspective, especially with the elevated borrowing costs. So once we start to see, you know, lower rates in the months ahead, I think you'll see a growing number of people moving off the sidelines and back into the market.
And Trev believes that it's not going to be until spring of 2025 when there's major movement when it comes to home buying trends. Well, the criminal trial for one of the organizers of the so-called Freedom Convoy was set to resume today, but that's been pushed back nearly 2 weeks. Pat King's lawyer was expected to call her first witness this morning, but the matter was adjourned until July 15th instead. The Crown has argued King was an influential leader at the protests against COVID-19 restrictions, vaccine mandates, and the Trudeau government that gridlocked downtown Ottawa in 2022. King has pleaded not guilty to several offenses, including mischief, counseling others to commit mischief, and obstructing police.
2/3 of Canadians believe Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will lead his party into the next election. That's according to the recent Leger poll. The latest the next election can happen is the fall of 2025. 1 out of every 3 people surveyed think Trudeau will step down before the end of this year, with many of those thinking it'll happen by Labor Day. Just 25% of those who took the poll believe Trudeau is doing a good job as Prime Minister. The online poll can't be assigned a margin of error. At an event in Milton today, Chrystia Freeland was asked, meanwhile, about her future as Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister after the Liberals' stunning by-election loss in Toronto St. Paul's.
Well, that's a choice for the Prime Minister, of course. But what I will say is there was definitely a clear message from the voters of Toronto St. Paul's. And I think it's really important for our government to hear that message and to act on that message. And that message was, things are hard. Life is hard. You as the government need to act and deliver to make life easier for us. We hear that, and we know that we have to work harder.
Freeland was in Milton to announce an investment of $35 million over the next 5 years to the Athletes Assistance Program. That money will help 1,800 athletes as they try to balance training and the cost of living. Ottawa will also invest $15 million in community sports programs to reduce barriers to participating in sports.
Well, Hurricane Beryl has weakened to a Category 3, but it still remains a very dangerous storm as it heads towards Mexico's Caribbean coast. Beryl ripped off roofs in Jamaica, and several roads were blocked by fallen trees and utility poles. Beryl also knocked out power when its eye wall brushed by Jamaica's southern coast, but the island avoided the devastation that the hurricane caused in the southeastern Caribbean. And Jamaica's 2 main airports remain shut today, but Kingston's Norman Manley International Airport is scheduled to reopen tomorrow.
Based upon the category of hurricane that hit us at a Category 4, the damage was not what we had expected. And so we're very grateful for that. But there was damage nonetheless. We had damage to some coastal infrastructure in southern parishes. We had damage to agriculture and housing in 2 parishes, Manchester and St. Elizabeth. We have had some roads cut off and blocked. But outside of that, I think Jamaica was spared the worst.
Time now is 5:22. Feels like 35 degrees outside. This is Live at 5.
Well, the Jays wrapped up their series against the Astros this afternoon at the Rogers Center. We're going to have highlights coming up.
Jansen will score. Schneider around to third. It's a 2-run single for Horwitz.
The 20th annual Taste of Lawrence Festival. It's happening this weekend.
Yeah, billed as Scarborough's largest street festival. It features a little something for everyone in the family, especially if you're hungry.
It was a vision that I had in 2003, and in 2004 we actually brought it to reality. So I founded it, and when we first started, the area was sort of a very sleepy area, not a lot of excitement and so on, and we decided that we wanted to grow, we wanted to brand it, wanted to create more opportunity. We saw a vision going forward in that more people were moving in, new foods were coming in, and most of the people who lived in the area didn't have the experience or the exposure and so on. So the best way to create that exposure was to bring it to the street.
We are very special. We're actually right now it's the largest street festival in Scarborough. And Scarborough is very cultural diversity. It's almost like a mini globe. So you can come to Taste of Lawrence and you save your air tickets. You have all the food you want, you can find in Taste of Lawrence.
Now, the festival runs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on Lawrence Avenue between Warden and Birchmount.
Okay, but Lindsay, there's another festival that's happening this weekend. I'm talking about Canada's largest Latin-themed street party. It takes over a section of St. Clair Avenue. It's happening this weekend.
The TD Salsa in Toronto Festival is celebrating 20 years. It features a fiesta parade showcasing performances from more than a dozen countries, a political salsa showdown, which will see Mayor Olivia Chow herself get her groove on, nonstop music and dance performances, and of course, lots of food. This one is on St. Clair between Winona and Christie, both Saturday and Sunday.
And the Jays were looking to split their series with the Astros today in an afternoon 4th of July game.
This is grounded up the middle and through. Springer will score. Jansen will score. Schneider around to third. It's a 2-run.
Spencer Horwitz would kick off a 3-run first inning for the Jays with a 2-run double. However, the bats would go quiet after that. Houston would go on to take this one 5-3. Toronto will head to Seattle next, where they will begin a 3-game series against the Mariners.
It's now 5:28, feeling like 35 outside. This is Live at 5.
We are less than 7 hours away from the strike deadline for LCBO workers, and we just got an update from the union. They say talks have broken down. Details coming up in just a moment. "10,000 LCBO workers could walk off the job if a deal isn't reached by midnight, closing all stores across the province."
And a woman and a child are targeted in a carjacking in a busy shopping area in Mississauga.
And 2 councillors are calling on the city to do something about Toronto's rat problem.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Lindsay Biscaya.
And I'm Bakari Savage. All right, we have breaking news. The union says that talks have broken down with the LCBO.
For the latest on this, we're going to be joined live by CP24's Sija Liu, who is keeping us updated on what's happening and what the union is saying tonight. Sija?
Lindsay, Bakari, things are not looking good right now. We received an update from the union, OPSU, a few moments ago. They said after a long week of bargaining, talks have broken down and they are not hopeful a deal can be reached at this time. Now, OPSU leaders, along with the bargaining team, will be holding a live press conference at 6 p.m. to update us on the bargaining and the status of that. Now, the deadline is midnight today. If a deal cannot be reached, which is not looking hopeful right now, according to OPSU, 10,000 workers would walk off the job and all LCBO locations will be closed for 2 weeks. This would be the first strike in LCBO history. OPSEU says the four governments' plan to allow convenience and grocery stores to sell alcohol is at the heart of these negotiations. Its workers fear this would result in job cuts and store closures. They are also seeking wage increases and more full-time jobs, saying about part-time roles take up around 70% of their workforce right now. And LCBO stores have been opening early and closing late to accommodate the last-minute scramble to stock up for liquor in the event of a strike happening at 12:01 a.m. if a deal cannot be reached. All retail locations, that's around 700 locations across the province, will be closed for 14 days. After that 2-week period on July 19th, 32 locations will reopen for in-store shopping. However, those locations will only be open on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays and shortened hours as well. Alcohol can still be purchased online at lcbo.com and also on their mobile app. LCBO says right now they will offer free home delivery, but has not provided any more details on how that will work. And of course, you can purchase alcohol at places that already sell it, such as the beer store, convenience stores, grocery stores, and wineries. However, if you are looking for specific liquors or vintage wines that are only sold at LCBOs, your best bet is to get to a store as soon as possible. Here's more from some folks who were shopping today.
I understand what it's about, but I don't approve of the fact that, they're getting less hours, etc. I think they should have longer hours. We don't need to have. They already have beer, etc. in LCBO or in the grocery stores. The LCBO does a good job as it stands, and those people need work.
I think it's just a matter of planning ahead. I mean, I got a cottage next week. I think I'm going to stock up tonight, so hopefully that doesn't affect me. But I just want a positive out of this. I think that's the best thing to put it.
And not only will everyday people be affected, restaurants will be as well. We spoke with Restaurants Canada Ontario Vice President about who could be impacted by this.
It's a big concern for our members. I can tell you we're at a point, even post-COVID, where about 47% of our members are still struggling just to break even. We've seen food costs rise about 25%. We've seen labor costs rise upwards of 20%. Insurance continues to go up. And this is just one more hit. So it absolutely is of concern.
And just to reiterate the latest update we got from OPSEU within the last half an hour, they say after a long week of bargaining, the talks have now broken down and they are not hopeful a deal can be reached at this time. OPSEU leaders and the bargaining team will be holding a live update at 6 p.m. to give us an update on the status of the bargaining. And the deadline that we are keeping an eye on is midnight, and it appears that things are not going well at this time. Back to you.
Yeah, and we will keep our viewers updated on the progress there. CP24's C. Jalou, thanks so much. Okay, 5:34. We're going to send things over to Adjoa for a quick check on the roads.
Yeah, Lindsay, we are still dealing with problems into Brampton on the northbound lanes of the 410. This is just as you make your way through Queen. Crews have moved over to the side, no longer in that left lane, so a little bit of good news. Still a bit of a backup from the 407. Headed on the 401, still a busy go as you head across the top of the city, but earlier issues have cleared and very jammed on the Gardner, making your way out of and heading into the downtown core. Problems continue on outside of camera view on the 400 southbound. This is right around Highway 9. Crews on scene of a multi-vehicle collision that is blocking the two right lanes. I'll send it back to you both.
All right, thanks a lot, Adj.
Welcome.
Well, frightening moments for a woman and a child happened last night. This is when they were carjacked at Heartland Town Center in Mississauga.
Yeah, we're going to go live now to CP24's Steve Ryan for the details on the allegations here. And Steve, this is incredibly disturbing.
Yeah, very disturbing and concerning for police. So the carjacking, police allege, happened in this plaza parking lot of the Heartland Town Center in Mississauga. The allegations are that a woman and a child were walking towards the woman's white BMW, and that the three suspects approached both of them in a black sedan. The driver we do not have a description for. The description of the other two suspects are both male, black, wearing dark clothing and masks. Now, police have said that they believe this to be a random attack, but it is believed that this woman may have been the target of this random attack as a result of the vehicle she was driving, that being the white BMW. So the woman and the child were left in this parking lot while the two suspects drove away in the BMW, followed by the black sedan. So this is a carjacking, which is, in all intents and purposes, a robbery, a theft with the threat or use of violence, and this is why this investigation is now being investigated by the robbery unit with the Peel Regional Police. Now, I did speak with the media officer earlier on from Peel Police, and here is some of our conversation. Let's listen.
On July 3rd, 2024, just before 7 p.m., Peel Region Police received a report about carjacking in the area of Britannia Road West and Silk and Lomond Way in the city of Mississauga. As the victim was accessing her vehicle, there were 3 suspects. 2 of them, they approached her and fled from the scene by taking her vehicle. There was a 3rd suspect also in the suspect vehicle who also fled from the scene. Paramedics, they attended the scene and they medically cleared the victim, and there was also a child involved as well. There are no injuries reported at this time. Our Central Robbery Bureau, they have taken the carriage of this investigation and they're working diligently to determine the fact of this incident.
Thankfully, this parking lot is loaded with video surveillance cameras, and the police right now are going through all that video surveillance as they try to identify who these suspects are. And as the officer said, they are looking for people who may have seen something here in this parking lot at 7 p.m. So if you were in the area and believe you have information that could help the investigators, you are being asked to give Peel Police a call. Back to the desk.
Okay, good to know. Steve, thanks for that. Alcohol is believed to have been a factor in a fatal overnight crash on the Gardiner.
Yeah, just after 2 o'clock this morning, police say that a black Audi was speeding in the eastbound lanes past Dufferin when it rear-ended another car with 5 people inside. A 40-year-old woman died in hospital. A 20-year-old woman suffered life-altering injuries. A toddler was taken to sick kids with minor injuries. The driver of the Audi was spotted walking away, literally on foot, and police believe that he was picked up by a rideshare or taxi. Well, 48-year-old Vance Kong of Whitby was later arrested. He's charged with impaired and dangerous driving, causing death, and leaving the scene of a fatal accident.
And police are investigating after shots were fired at a business in Scarborough. Windows were damaged at a building on Nashteen Road in the Middlefield Road and McNichol area, but there were no injuries. It was reported to police around 2:45 this afternoon, but investigators say it's not known when the shots were fired. They are now appealing for information.
And a man and woman are facing charges related to a slew of break-ins in the North York area. So police say multiple homes, construction sites, and businesses were targeted between mid-April and the beginning of July. LED lights, cell phones, wires, and other items were stolen. 36-year-old Michael Donaldson and 37-year-old Alicia Gross, they're facing charges.
And police are putting out a warning that thieves may be targeting music stores in the GTA. Last month, police were called to a music store in the Morningside and Milner area after 4 guitars were stolen. Police are now looking for 2 suspects. The first is a 40 to 50-year-old man with short brown hair and dark facial hair. He was seen wearing a black sweater, light pants, and black shoes. The second suspect is described as 40 to 50 years old with dark facial hair, and he was seen wearing a dark baseball hat with a logo and a dark T-shirt.
Well, some city councillors are calling for a strategy to deal with rat infestations in Toronto.
For more on whether or not the city has a rat problem, we are joined by CTV's Beth McDonnell with the details. So, Beth, what are councillors saying here?
Lindsay, Bakari, they're saying that when the ground shakes from construction projects, the rats leave their habitat and go into the neighborhoods. And, you know, on top of the ick factor with rats, they can also carry disease and they can also cause damage to infrastructure and wiring. And so these councillors say that especially as the city is growing and more housing is needed, that we need to come up with this plan to deal with these rats. There are places in the city, though, that say they've been dealing with rats for 8 to 10 years, and so the construction is making it worse. They also say that people littering on the sidewalk is making things worse. I spoke to one business owner today. Here's what she had to say.
So you see them, especially late at night, crossing the street, running around in the sidewalks, burying into the sides of stores, trying to get in. And a lot of residents on the streets, especially near the construction sites, are getting rats that are literally jumping around, frolicking in their yards. We really don't need a year of people being consulted because it's pretty easy how you deal with the situation.
that business owner in the Bloor and Lansdowne area, saying that we need action now. The two councillors that put forward their motion to have staff look at this and report back not till next year in the later half. So some concern about the timeline to deal with these rats. Councillor Alejandro Bravo, one of those councillors from that same area, saying that other big cities like New York and Washington, they have a plan to deal with the rats, and Ottawa and Peel region also have a plan to deal with the rats. So it's time that we here in Toronto get on board with that as well. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Lindsay, Bakari, back to you.
Yeah, and Beth, also there's that list that Orkin Canada came out with as well, ranking Toronto, the #1 most rodents infested area?
Yikes, right? Yeah, we spoke to Orkin Canada today as well, saying that, it's not just construction that you need to tackle this problem, that you need to take a multi-pronged approach, talking about places like, homeless encampments, talking about, what homeowners need to do as well, talking about what businesses need to do. And it really has to do with storing and cleaning your space as much as possible. Also, Orkin Canada saying there are things that we can do to prevent these rats from getting out to this extent, in terms of putting traps in, maybe before the ground is really moved. So and then Alejandro Bravo also talking about ways that maybe we could make, some of these developments be required to do some of this work to mitigate the problem. So Toronto has looks like it's falling behind a little bit to some of the other places, and if Orkin Canada's numbers are what they say they are, it's time.
All right, CTV's Beth McDonnell. Thanks a lot, Beth.
Thank you.
It's 5:43, 29 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Well, home sales in the GTA, they were down 16% in June. This is despite the Bank of Canada's rate cut. Coming up, we're going to break down the numbers for you.
Well, it seems many potential home buyers in the Toronto area decided to stay on the sidelines last month, despite the Bank of Canada's interest rate cut. The Toronto Regional Real Estate Board says home sales in June fell more than 16% from last year. Roughly 6,200 properties changed hands that month, compared to more than 7,400 in June of 2023. The average selling price in the GTA also dipped 1.6% to a little more than $1.1 million. Treb says the data suggests home buyers are waiting for multiple rate cuts before getting into the market.
I think when you drill down to the individual neighborhood level, you're still seeing, some cases where there'll be multiple offers on homes, and you're seeing in other neighborhoods where there's, more inventory that, home buyers are able to, negotiate better terms. And so it's really sort of different, when you look at a large metropolitan area like the GTA. But certainly, if you think about the sales trend, you think about the listings trend and break it down by home type, we're seeing a lot of similarities there.
Trab believes it won't be until spring of 2025 when there is major movement when it comes to home buying trends.
Well, the cost of 2 new electric ferries to serve the Toronto Island has ballooned to $92 million. The new price tag was confirmed by city staff at a committee meeting earlier this week. The contract is set to be awarded to Damon Shipyards Galati, who will build the ferries in Romania. The new vessels, they're going to be delivered in late 2026 and early 2027. The current ferries are between 60 and 114 years old. That's far beyond the average lifespan. Well, after years of going in the garbage, coffee cups can now be recycled in Toronto. A new pilot program launched this week. It's part of a phased province-wide plan to recycle paper and plastic-lined cups by 2026. And for now, the pilot only applies to blue bins at home, not the ones on the street, but the city's asking residents to toss them in the large blue bins anyway to get in the habit and reduce confusion. Cups need to be empty, rinsed, and separated from the sleeve and lid, but they can all be recycled.
Toronto's oldest cinema is getting some high-profile support as it fights to stay open. The Revue has been a Ronsonsville landmark for over 100 years. Last week, the group that operates the cinema said it was having trouble renewing its lease, citing a disagreement with the landlords over repairs and a rent increase. The tenants got an injunction to keep the doors open for now, but that's only temporary. Now, Oscar-winning Hollywood director Guillermo Del Toro is joining the call to save save the Revue. He took to social media, directly asking Mayor Chow to help save it. He called it one of Canada's most beloved nonprofit cultural landmarks, and he asked Chow, if not you, who can help, or how can I help? Del Toro posted a link to a change.org petition, noting almost 20,000 signatures have already been added.
It's 5:48, 29 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, polls are now closed in the UK in a general election that is widely expected to bring a change in government. Details on that coming up.
Okay, here's a live look at the UK as pollsters are tallying ballots right now. Polls, they are closed in the UK. This is in a general election that's widely expected to bring a change in government. Exit polls show that the Labour Party is on track to win a majority in Britain's parliament. And pre-election polls have already projected that the governing Conservatives were expected to lose today's national election. The party has held power for 14 years under 5 different prime ministers. The Conservatives have been struggling to reassure voters about issues such as the rising cost of living and the state of the UK's healthcare system.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he has approved a new round of negotiations with Hamas. Israeli officials say Netanyahu told U.S. President Joe Biden today that he has decided to send a delegation to resume stalled negotiations on a hostage release deal with Hamas. The White House said Biden welcomed Netanyahu's decision, adding that the Israeli prime minister also reinforced his position during the call with the U.S. president that Israel would only end its war in Gaza when all objectives had been achieved.
And Americans around the world are celebrating one of the U.S.'s biggest holidays today. The 4th of July, it marks Independence Day for Americans, which means parades, fireworks displays, and barbecues in full swing across the country. Here in Toronto, a flag-raising ceremony took place at Queen's Park. And this long weekend in the U.S. is also expected to be one of the busiest ones of the year for travel. More than 70 million people are expected to hit roads and airports through Sunday.
And hundreds of thousands of people gathered in Mumbai to celebrate India's first World Cup cricket title in more than a decade. Fans danced, waved the Indian flag, and flashed smartphone lights after waiting for hours to glimpse the victorious squad. India beat South Africa in a tight finish with the ICC's T20 World Cup final last weekend. The team had previously won the inaugural T20 tournament in 2007 and then was runner-up in 2014.
Right now it's 5:53, 29 degrees, feeling like 35 outside. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, Canada has named its first Olympic breakdancer. Stay with us. The 20th annual Taste of Lawrence Festival is happening this weekend.
Yeah, billed as Scarborough's largest street festival. It features a little something for everyone in the family, especially if you're hungry.
It's $5, you get 3 tries,
And Canada's largest Latin-themed street party takes over a section of St. Clair Avenue this weekend. The TT Salsa in Toronto Festival is celebrating 20 years. It features a fiesta parade showcasing performances from more than a dozen countries, a political salsa showdown, which will see Mayor Olivia Chow get her groove on, non-stop music and dance performances, and of course, lots of food. It's on St. Clair between Winona and Christie, both Saturday and Sunday.
Well, the Blue Jays were looking to split their series with the Astros today in an afternoon 4th of July game.
This is grounded up the middle and through. Springer will score. Jansen will score. Schneider around to third. It's a 2.
Spencer Horwitz would kick off a 3-run first inning for the Jays with a 2-run double. However, the bats would go quiet after that. Houston would go on to take this one 5-3. Toronto will head to Seattle next, where they will begin a 3-game series against the Mariners.
Well, Canadian Denis Shapovalov is off to the 3rd round at Wimbledon. It took 5 sets for Shapo to defeat Germany's Daniel Altmaier. It was an uneven performance from the Canadian, who committed 16 double faults and 58 unforced errors. Shapovalov is going to next play 14th seed Ben Shelton.
And the Argonauts were set to clash with the undefeated Rough Riders in Saskatchewan tonight. Toronto is coming off a defeat at the hands of the Montreal Alouettes last week. The defending Grey Cup champs won 30-20 to hand the Argos their first loss of the season. The loss also snapped Toronto's home unbeaten streak at 11 games. Kickoff for this evening's game in Regina is set for 9 o'clock.
All right, Lindsay, Canada has its first Olympic breakdancer.
Phil Kim has been named to the roster for the Paris Games, where breaking will make its Olympic debut. The Vancouverite won gold in the B-Boys breaking competition at the Pan American Games, and the Olympic breakdancing competition will take place on August 9th and 10th.
You know what, Lindsay? I know you're a little bit younger than me, so you might not really understand this, but if this was 30 years ago, I would be there.
That would be you. I just learned that Bakari used to breakdance.
Oh, yeah. In the 80s, baby.
Maybe we'll get a demo someday.
In the 80s.
Who knows?